Hi, it's Michael, and I wanted to just give some feedback before we move into week 8 and complete this assignment 3. And just to be clear, assignments 1, 2, 3, while they are graded, my intent is always to just use these as opportunities for you to learn and experiment, right? These are just learning opportunities because these are the techniques I want you to apply in your final, which we're going to start up on after this week is over, right? So I know you're focused on. Please do read the rubric of what I'm looking for, but I'm going to give you a few tips just because that's what these videos are there, just to make sure we're on the right track. One note this week that's interesting is how many people did a detail view, which is fun. And the detail view, in my mind, is something you might have thought about when we did our HTML. There was actually a tag called detail. So there were ideas that I think are now being seen, which can be powerful. But I do think structurally that is our hope. We're the information architect. We're trying to show how things, where they go, and how they fit. We're not immediately super concerned about I guess what you call design, because that's basically how do you arrange this to make it readable and understandable and quick to look at. And you might find yourself struggling with that, and that's fine. This isn't a design class, but I do think that we've seen a lot of different ideas here. You know, for example, this might be an idea demonstrated. We'll see this week, right? Do you click on this and this opens and these others stay below it, or does this appear on a new page, and then you're going to use this sort of breadcrumb trail to go backwards. And that's a big part of navigation. We started week 1 concerned about being lost. And I didn't want you to forget that, because we should all be at this point in our lives critical of when you don't feel confident in a direction or movement or in signage, and all that stuff should be, but it's kind of ingrained that we have been misled. Your job here is to help people, right, to not be misled. I have definitely noticed this week, and I wanted to mention it, that the sort order is something that should bother you because there's no way to know how to sort when you click on a topic, right? And so many of you have brought in different ways to get from a topic to a subtopic, and many of you have talked about sort order, and maybe that's A to Z. Most would say that any of these topics are not alphabetically significant. And that's a thing. These are just things that I want you to realize, because when you get to your actual looking at your focus, I want you to describe, how did they sort things? How did they manage to do that? And you can look through and you can pretty much figure out how they managed to sort and filter things, because a lot of times you won't have evident ways to do it. Now, you can also end up going over to, I think I mentioned Craigslist. You know, some of these conventions are done pretty well on some sites, right? With a lot of filters. But what I've noticed one too many times is checkboxes. Not picking on anyone here, but these choices, checkbox is sort of indicating somehow that this is a query. And I know we didn't spend a ton of time in data design, but if you try querying by multiple concepts, it actually doesn't work the way you think it works. And this is why free text search and why other methods of getting results from databases are more effective, because the programmer and you, maybe as the information architect, can correct for bad searches. And bad meaning that you contradict each other, right? You have two terms that don't go together, but people don't realize that. In fact, if you went into a car, you could press every button in the car probably and not get the car to brake. It's because they realize how things work together in order to not uh, not affect things adversely. I would say almost all of you just remove the idea of multiple checks and just make it one. So if you clicked on one thing, what would show up? If that isn't acceptable, think about moving things. So in this case, up top, you can have another layer of navigation that gives context to this one says family friendly. So what does that mean? Rather than putting it over here, instead put it up here. And also you're creating more qualitative organizational ideas. You might even be um, seeing that. So for example, dairy-free, nut-free could go right up here, and then you're easily able to navigate entire groups and concepts. And you'll see this all over the sites that you use. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that everyone seems reliant upon this bar rail idea with checkboxes. I think that's just the way this course works, that it happens, and then that inspires everyone, and that is intentional. You all are indeed supposed to look at each other's work and learn from it. That's absolutely intentional. But I do think that sometimes we copy a pattern without really thinking it through, and that's what this week is all about. We're just going to think it through, and we're going to use a technique. I'm calling it storyboarding. So storyboarding, we do love our murals, happens here. Okay. So storyboard, I'm just saying, if you've ever done boxes and arrows of any sort, you might like this sort of shorthand. This is just an UI flow, which is people see things and do things. Now, I just think you need to write out a scenario that you want to depict. This is a little bit like site mapping, right? The site map was supposed to be quick and easy way to get feedback on how many things need to be clickable on your screen. This one is more like, well, what do they click on? Now, if you have 20 things that they can click on and then they click on one, you don't have to go to that level of depth, but I want you to be aware of it. The more choices people have, the harder it gets. That's why all those checkboxes can be really, really, like, if you thought about it, you would, by the way, your job as an IA is to think about what happens when they click on everything, right? That's your suggestion as navigation, and therefore you have to have some confidence that it'll work. Pause there. I know you're not experts at this. I just want you to get a feel for the kind of work that is involved in doing information architecture, right? That's the goal of this class. And I want you to identify it in people in services that have done it really well, and know why they did it well. That's our entire goal. So you can do your happy path here. Also, you can just repost your work from last week if you don't think you got adequate feedback. I know a lot of people posted on Monday. It's really kind of hard to keep the momentum going. So why not repost and add more? The states that you need to show are just a sequence, and every sequence is one step, meaning one choice is made. And therefore, you shouldn't need to have any arrows, and you shouldn't need to have anything else. And you can read the rubric just to make sure you're reading the rubric. And by the way, we're still at information. Just remember, next week we're going to jump at these top two and see what's the magic that's going to happen there. But still, we can only do what we do. Everything comes from your database. There is no magic right now other than just coming up with queries to help people find things. So right now, a user goal might be to see one thing, maybe see some detail, not get lost, and go back to either look at another or to change context. I think is really interesting. Click on something else and show me what I'm looking at is, does this help? Am I oriented? Do I understand why I got from one place to the other? And by the way, you can look at it yourself and also come to those conclusions and change things. This is often used just as a way to demonstrate some ideas to yourself as the designer or the architect, right? Am I making the right choices? Am I doing the right thing? And that's this week, and we'll wrap that up, and we'll move on to our final paper. And hopefully that's helpful. I know the viewership of this goes up and down, but if this, I hope this is helpful, and I'll post it right away. Thanks.